Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Make It Destination. My name is Amanda, and this is where I help you make it to your destination. So sorry that I've been MIA. I've just been super busy with balancing work, balancing an internship, balancing school. So again, I apologize. I'm hoping that I could be more consistent within the next few weeks. If there's any videos that you want me to make, just let me know. But honestly, I just wanted to sit down and talk to you guys. Lately, I feel like I've been in a travel block mode. And what I mean by that is every time I try to plan a trip, I kind of feel at a loss. Usually I'm really good with detail-oriented planning and being able to choose an Airbnb versus a hotel, whether to fly or drive, how long I want to stay. But lately, for some reason, I feel stuck. And I wanted to investigate this and see if other people, like my viewers, feel the same exact way. I think we all thought at this moment we would be further along in terms of healing with the pandemic, and honestly will not. And I'm hoping 2022 is a great starter year for travel again, but we've kind of taken one step forward, 3 steps back. So I want to talk about how the pandemic is changing travel trends and how it's affecting us right now. We are still kind of investigating, and we don't know what the future holds in regards to the ill effects that the pandemic is going to have on travel. But right now I want to talk about how travel was pre-pandemic, how the planning process was much easier in my opinion, how the pandemic has changed it after, and what type of trends this is causing. And maybe this is why I'm feeling this way. And please let me know in the comments if you're feeling travel fatigue, travel planning fatigue, if you feel as though it feels like a weight on your shoulders instead of an exciting experience of planning your next destination. With that said, that's the end of my intro, and let's kind of get into how the pandemic changed travel trends. Before we start this video, please make sure you like it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button because I know you don't want to miss any of my videos. Hit that notification bell so that they let you know. And let me know in the comments, again, if you're feeling travel fatigue, if you feel as though you can't pick a destination, you don't know where to go, whether it's because of safety issues, whether it's because you're not allowed to go there, whether it's because you don't know if regulations will allow you to go there. Let me know what you're feeling. So we're going to start with the before effect. This is, pre-pandemic, pre-March 2020. This is how I felt as a traveler, right? So some of the trends that I saw before the pandemic were you had a variety of travel destinations to choose from. It almost felt overwhelming, right? You didn't know if you wanted to go backpacking in Europe, if you wanted to go and backpack across Asia, right? Go to China, go to South Korea, go to Japan. You didn't know if you wanted more of a Caribbean sort of trip where you could relax and maybe have a little bit of adventure, but sort of have fun. It almost felt like there were too many choices to choose from. So you had to go on, travel and leisure and kind of look at lists to see what destination was calling your name, right? Again, not everybody feels comfortable with international destinations, but it definitely was easier to go somewhere. You still had places that were more popular than others during different times. I think right before the pandemic, a lot of people shed light on Bora Bora. They shed light on Bali, right? There are certain places that become popular in the tourist field, whether it's because they've been undervalued for so long and now people are realizing that they're a paradise, whether they were valued at some point and kind of lost interest and now they're coming back, or whether it's because a new generation of people want to see something new and they feel safe going to a certain destination, right? Some destinations have reinvented themselves to be tourist regions, whether it's, hey, we are safer now than we were 20 years ago, or hey, we have these amenities and beautiful natural features that haven't been discovered yet. So I felt as though, depending on what generation you were coming from, you had a variety of travel destinations to choose from. Again, it felt overwhelming. The second point I want to make is you had more of a choice between international or domestic, whether to explore the US, go on a road trip, all that sort of stuff. You could see national parks if you wanted to. If you're more into nature, more into camping, national parks are all for you. If you're more into the tropical vibe, you could choose going to the Caribbean, where it's international at some points, but it's still close enough to home where it's not too much for you if you get overwhelmed in an international destination. And again, certain regions were popular and it changed with the times, right? I feel like now, this is before the pandemic, the Southeast Asian region was gaining popularity with millennials and Gen Z. That was a big boom period for them. Before that, a lot of boomers love going to the Caribbean and relaxing and going to a resort. So I felt as though the conclusion that I come to before the pandemic is that you had more of a choice. There was more variety, and that variety led to kind of people dispersing out, right? I think places might have gotten overwhelmed with tourists, but because there was choice, even if there was popularity, it didn't ever become too much, if that makes sense. And that's going to lead us into the after effects. Because you had so much of a choice, let's just say you didn't like being in a popular destination. If you didn't like going to the Dominican Republic or Bali or anything like that, you could go to Chile. You could go to Croatia. You could go to Hungary. You could go to these places that aren't popular within the American travel context, right? If you wanted to find something new, to feel as though you were discovering something, you didn't have to go to certain destinations. So that kind of goes into the second part of this video, which is the after effects. And that's why I'm saying making the point of choice, variety, and dispersal. Those are the three things that I feel before the pandemic, right? When I was younger and I wanted to go places, I created a whole list, a bucket list before 30 of where I wanted to go, what I wanted to see. And it felt as though there was no way that I couldn't go, other than, a financial burden or paying off my debt or whatever the case may be. I felt like I had such a wonderful variety of choices. Now with the pandemic, I unfortunately do not feel the same way. And I feel as though I have to prioritize and rearrange the list that I made from a couple years ago, because I don't know how the pandemic is going to affect travel 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. For those in my generation who haven't been able to travel yet, this is absolutely devastating, but you can turn it around if you figure out where travel is headed. So let's talk about the after effects of the pandemic in regard to travel. So now on the after effects of the pandemic in regard to travel. I'm hopefully going to share some video clips or news clips. Will either be in the description or I'll put them right in this video. But the after effects, right? We have all of these closures. We have all of these airlines not servicing flights to places. We have government saying you cannot cross borders. And now we're kind of in this period of places slowly reopening.
The world's longest international border runs more than 5,500 miles between the U.S. and Canada, but shut down to non-business travelers since March of 2020, as both governments tried to curb the pandemic. This morning, after 17
more than a year, Italy is finally welcoming Americans back for vacation as it tries to recover economically from the pandemic. And joining us now from Tuscany with the best...
Especially with the summer. But, again, this is in the American context. People got tired of staying in their homes. People got tired of having to see the same four walls, staying in their communities. And so they wanted to be able to travel, but it's reinventing the term itself now that we are allowed outside. So a lot of people started to look literally in their backyards. Many people are starting to put in pools, put in, playgrounds, well, not playgrounds, but just an area where kids could play. They're making their home their entertainment space. So that is one aspect of, hey, I can't go somewhere, but I could bring those amenities to my house. That's like the first piece. The second piece is the locality and exploring your backyard. A lot of people, especially before the pandemic, felt as though, I live in, let's just say New Jersey. So I'm not gonna travel to New Jersey because I already know what's here. I'm gonna go to Europe, I'm gonna go to Africa, to a country in Africa, and explore there because I already know what's in my backyard. So instead of that ideal, now it's, maybe I actually don't know what's in my backyard. Let me explore some local hikes. Let me see local parks. Let me see what's around me. So people started to reduce their mileage, but still want to explore nature. And that gets me to my third point, which is the experiences of nature have increased dramatically. People who do not camp, people who do not hike, people who don't immerse themselves in nature are now immersing themselves in nature because that is the only place right now that is deemed safe, right? An outdoor environment where the air isn't circulating in a small cramped room or a cramped hotel or whatever the case may be is deemed safe now. This leads me to the first trend that I want to focus on, which national parks right now are swamped with visitors. Swamped. And I retrieved this article from Bloomberg, and they interview people who work for the National Park Service. And it says increased crowds have led to longer wait times, increased traffic, and increased litter in these beautiful parks. Again, the reason why we preserve these parks was to save them for future generations and make sure they don't degrade and they're not subject to development. But when you have thousands of people going, because now we're all funneled into one type of travel mode, of course they're going to become swamped with visitors. And it gets harder and harder to protect these beautiful natural landscapes when you have thousands of people walking around, littering, driving through these parks, so on and so forth. Some parks have even switched to a pre-ticketed entry system, which is basically like you're making a reservation at a restaurant, but instead of a restaurant, it's at a national park. Of course, this has upset some people who go thinking that they could buy a ticket the day of, and then they're like, oh, I'm sorry, you don't have a reservation, and then, of course, your vacation probably isn't the same. So people are very disappointed with how this has been communicated, but I could see why the national parks, at least some, have switched over to this mode, because it gives you in your mind a head count of who you have in there. Because honestly, it doesn't matter. It does. It matters how many people you have in there, but more importantly, it matters how many vehicles you have driving in and out, in and out, in and out. So Arcadia National Park, this leads me to this point, has restricted private vehicle entry and tried to utilize shuttles in order to decrease traffic congestion, right? Because the more cars you have, the more backup you have, and then you have these emissions being released into these national parks. And these emissions are way more than they were before. Because again, people are veering toward nature trips, and because that's kind of the only choice that we have at this point. But I don't want to group all national parks together. There are some national parks that are booming right now. And I think the ones that are booming are Yellowstone. That region up there is booming with visitors, while some others cannot attract enough people. And I think this was Joshua Tree and a few others. I'll type it in the side. The explanation, in my personal opinion, I think it's most likely Instagram. Right? When you see, the Old Faithful Geyser in Yellowstone National Park, that is beautiful. You want to go and see that. When you see the waterfall at Yosemite, you want to go and experience that. When you see the beautiful, almost crystal clear blue lake at Glacier National Park, you want to experience that. But at a park like Joshua Tree, where it's mainly desert, mainly cacti, and there's not a main focal point, it's kind of... Okay, people are just screaming outside. Anyways, at a park like Joshua Tree, where it's mainly cacti, and there isn't a main focal point or a water feature, most people aren't going to go there. It's hot, not really a focal point. What are you trying to experience? So I personally think it's the Instagramification of destinations like I've talked about in the past. Another thing that has increased in popularity, especially now with the pandemic, is the American road trip. And specifically, this includes the van life aesthetic. This is I bought a $7,000 van, renovated the inside, and now I'm going cross country. Because with your work going remote, as long as you have Wi-Fi and a vehicle where you could do your work on, whether it's a laptop, desktop, your phone, you're honestly set. So the van life aesthetic has increased tremendously. People don't want to feel stuck somewhere. People want to be able to experience the outdoors and feel as though they have control over their own lives. I think one of the main points that the pandemic has shed light on is how we're not in control. And traveling sometimes makes you feel as if you're in control, right? You could choose the destination. You could choose where you want to go out to eat. You could choose if you want to stop somewhere for a few days or if you just want to keep driving. And that's where the van life aesthetic has boomed. People are getting tired of rules and regulations, and they just want to feel free. And this life has made you feel free. Another thing, like I talked about before, is localized travel and connecting to nature. More and more people are looking to their backyard, literally, for entertainment, pleasure, fun, but mainly within their own state or region. Going back to the van life aesthetic, RV companies are seeing an increase in demand for their products. The Gazette for business interviewed a local RV shop, and they said in February 2021 they sold more than 48,000 units, which is a 30% increase from the previous February. So the previous February 2020, before the pandemic started. The industry is expecting to ship more than 507,000 units in 2021, which is a 19.5% increase over record sales in 2020. So we aren't seeing the stopping of this in 2021. We're only seeing the RV business boom after this. From this information of national parks, RV life, a third point I want to bring up is because we can only travel domestically, and I made a video about this, and I'll put it right up here for you guys, and it talks about how Hawaii was literally littered with tourists. That's like the best way I could say it. Because there was no other island tropical feel that you could go for this past summer, this past spring, so many people went to either Hawaii or Florida. And again, this leads to the increased degradation of the land, soil, and culture that these two places thrive on, mainly Hawaii, in my personal opinion. The locals could not enjoy their own land, and rates of COVID soared as tourists came in and out, in and out, in and out. And so I think we're seeing that the passion for travel has not stopped, but the choices have. And unfortunately, this has wreaked havoc on places that are receiving mass concentration of tourists. And so we're gonna see, this is my personal opinion for what's going to happen in the future. But we're going to see how this is going to affect future travel and future regulations when it comes to tourists coming in and out. Especially now that we're seeing a funneling of reduced choices, but still probably the same amount, if not more people, trying to escape from the mundane tasks of everyday life because they want to travel. We want to have fun. We want to explore. But we have to make sure that we're keeping our responsibility to culture and the environment in mind. So that's going to bring us to what travel trends are likely going to persist or become anew after the pandemic is over. So let's get into that part. So for this last part, this is all my opinion, kind of where I see the travel industry headed. And you can let me know in the comments if you agree, if you're seeing these trends, or if you disagree and you think it's going to go a completely different way, let me know. Again, this isn't right or wrong. This is just where I think the industry is going to head. So from what we've been seeing from the after effects so far of the pandemic on travel trends, we've seen mass numbers going to national parks. To some and not all. And in my opinion, that's due to Instagramification. 2, we've seen road trips come back in popularity, right? Because you don't have to be in a hotel with other people. You could be kind of in your own bubble. You don't have to worry about the transmission of disease as much. And then 3, when you do see popular tourist destinations pop up in the news, there are mass tourist numbers. One of my theories is in the future, we're going to see more and more destinations either have a cap on tourists or ensue a tourist tax. Because we have not seen all of the after effects of the mass tourists in Hawaii. We have not seen the after effects of mass tourists in Miami. The after effects of mass tourists in national parks. And honestly, I don't think the demand is going to decrease. It might change as more and more choices kind of pop up and people feel safer. But I really think this is going to bring people back to kind of controlling their own travel situation. We've seen RV sales increase. You're not going to really buy an RV and then a year later be like, yeah, this isn't for me. You might have a family. You might want to expand. You might want to travel with another RV family, right? I really think that destinations are going to start to ensue taxes or some sort of like reimbursement for being on their land and enjoying their amenities that they have. Because when vast amount of numbers of people are going to certain destinations, there has to be some after effects, whether it's social, economic, whatever the case may be. And if it does pivot and change once the pandemic is done, that's going to be a huge like boom and bust kind of cycle that town or city or island has been through. So there's definitely going to be an effect of trying to see if the numbers stay persistent or whether it immediately drops off once international destinations pop up. Another theory that I have for the future like travel trends is that there's going to be more health checkpoints. I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. And I'm not saying that's just for the COVID virus in and of itself, but it could be for other diseases. I would hope this would be the last pandemic, but I don't think it will be. And so because of that, I think there are going to be health checkpoints, whether it's, did you receive a vaccine? Did you receive a booster shot? Let me take your temperature. Have you been diagnosed with anything within the past week or two of traveling? Because now that this has happened, countries are going to be more protective of their people and who's coming in and out and who's spreading what. So I think health checkpoints in airports and borders and wherever else you go in and out of a country, I think are going to increase because countries now know kind of how to deal with it and what happens when you deal with a disease or a pandemic in the wrong way. And honestly, the money that some countries or some places receive from tourism is so much that they cannot afford to go through this again, so they're going to make sure that they're protected. So I don't think like health checkpoints are going away anytime soon. I think that's going to be extremely important. And then kind of my last theory is I think people are looking for more unique experiences. I think people are kind of tired of the kind of hotel aesthetic, going in and creating your own itinerary, so on and so forth. I think that there's going to be a change in kind of travel wants and needs. And so I think people, especially with the fact that we've seen increased RV sales, I think people want control over their travel, just all in all, right? With an RV, you know who's in it. You know that all that stuff in the RV most likely is yours. You know when you last cleaned it. You know when you're going to leave, when you're going to stay. All that sort of stuff. Compared to a hotel is you're ensuring, you're giving them your trust to clean the hotel room to the best of their ability. To make sure, you know, that the transmission of disease is extremely low. But if you look at the hotel fine print, flight fine print, or any activity fine print, it says they are not responsible if you contract COVID-19. So I think people, instead of taking that risk, they want to be outside. They want to be able to do their own thing. There's, you know, not new, but there are these two companies that come to mind when I think of this, and that's AutoCamp and it's called Getaway. So AutoCamp and Getaway. AutoCamp and Getaway are sort of similar, but not. They're basically, AutoCamp is Airstreams. Is an Airstream boutique hotel. So you get your own Airstream that they've renovated, that they've connected. You don't have to worry about it, and you get to stay there, and it's an outdoorsy environment. I believe they have locations in Joshua Tree, Yosemite, Cape Cod, and they're going to have one in the Catskills in 2022. So again, if you cannot afford to buy your own RV, this kind of makes you feel, okay, I don't have control over buying one, but at least I have an Airstream that's confined. It's only whoever I bring in myself, and it's an outdoor event. Getaway, sort of the same thing. They have one in Eastern Catskill and Western Catskill, but it's cabins. And again, it's a confined space. You know who's in it. And then when you go outside, you kind of feel as though the transmission of COVID is less than if you were in a hotel. I think those two companies, as well as other glamping companies, have probably seen an increase in demand for their services. This is kind of a convergence of everything that I've talked about. Safety, control over transmission, and outdoor activities. And if you're from the region, like I am, I'm from upstate New York, the Catskills aren't super far away, but it feels like you're far away. It feels as though you're further away than not doing anything at all, right? Instead of being like, I have travel fatigue, I don't feel like planning anything. This immerses you in nature, makes you feel safer, and kind of leads you to have more control, you know, in regard to transmission, or at least it feels like it. So I really feel as though these sorts of activities and unique getaways are only going to increase in demand. So those are just my theories. I just wanted to talk to you guys about how travel has been changing. Again, for me, it's been difficult to plan trips and choose a destination and see what I want to do because the rules and regulations change so frequently. Let me know in the comments if you feel the same exact way. Please make sure you like this video if you want more content. Make sure you hit the notification bell so that you never miss one of my videos. And please subscribe to my channel. And thank you so much for your patience with my slow uploading. I appreciate it. And until next time.